are back with another episode of Carolina Closings. I'm your host, Drew Ferguson. We're joined today by Scott Rubzin. Scott is a full-time real estate investor here in the greater Charlotte area. So we're going to be talking about how Scott got into real estate investing, some tips and tricks that he has for people out there that are looking to invest. So this should be a great episode, chock full of advice for people that are interested in real estate investing. So Scott, welcome to the show.
Drew, thank you so much for having me. Really excited for this. Also a little nervous for some of the questions, but I'm ready for it.
All right, well, let's do it. Let's dive right in, man. Talk us through the first deal you ever did and how that sparked your interest in this.
Yeah, so I was actually out in California for 12 years. I bought a house in California in college in 2010, and wasn't looking for a deal, simply was looking just for a place to live during college. Like, I just couldn't find a place to live. And somebody approached me about buying this house. It was ready to go. It wasn't a great deal by any means. And I ended up just renting that house to fellow people and, fellow golfers that, were my teammates, and actually also the women's volleyball team. And my goal with that house at the end of the day was simply just rent out the other rooms, and I got to live for free. There was no other upside. I didn't care if the house, doubled, just mortgage was being paid. I got to live for free. And I thought that was the greatest thing in the world at the end of the day. That's how I got started. It wasn't supposed to change my life. I didn't know I was going to deep dive into real estate. I studied accounting in college. Got my degree in accounting. God bless all the CPAs out there. I just couldn't do it. But that's kind of what started piqued my interest in real estate, was that house. And forever grateful for that house. But at the end of the day, the goal was simply just rent out the other rooms and live for free.
Awesome. Well, I think a lot of times, especially first-time buyers that are maybe just getting out of college, they hear the term house hacking, and that's exactly what you did, right? Was how can I find a way?
Yeah, house hacking, roommates, whatever you want to call it. At that point in my life, it was absolutely perfect for me, and I was happy to sell.
So you have sold that property. That property is no longer owned by Scott.
I have sold that property. Did okay on it in California. Obviously, some appreciation. But definitely made some mistakes, as well with that house. I remember, I don't know why, I just didn't know any better. All my friends were, everyone signed a lease still. I tried to keep it as friendly because at the end of the day, these were still all my friends, even, volleyball players. And everyone signed a lease, but like everybody was on a different lease time frame, which just makes no sense. You would think like everyone would be on a 12-month lease. I had 9 months over here, 10 over here, 12 over here. And I was just painting random roofs at different times during the year. And is it worth it? Yes. Is a roommate great? Yes. But that was definitely one thing I remember was I had different leases for everybody, and it just made no sense.
Well, I think eventually everybody turns like 25 or 26. They're like, I need to go do this on my own.
Yes.
It's been fun living with you guys, but we got life to do.
Yeah, correct.
Well, cool.
Correct.
So you mentioned that piques your interest, right? You get started, you're seeing this happening. You sold this property. Did you immediately turn around and use that sale to help acquire the next property, or what happened after you sold it?
Yeah, so I ended up doing, after college, I ended up doing one more of those, kind of renting to college kids. That's how I kind of got started. And then in that process, out in California, my mom, love her to death. She's been a stay-at-home mom my entire life. She loves HGTV. And just one day she's sitting at home and she, I think it might've been the first year of the show ever, actually. She was watching the show. It's called Flip or Flop with this guy, Tarek, Christina. They were a couple out in Orange County, California, and they were flipping homes. And she just goes, oh, you should email them. You should see if you work for them. I'm thinking like, oh, I don't know if it works like that. Like that, I don't know if LinkedIn was even around at this time. Like, it just made no sense. And I don't know what it was. I sent an email. Worst email ever written. I actually still have a copy of it. Like, it's not professional. And I think maybe less than a day later, I got an email back actually from a guy named Keith Best, who was, he was 50-50 partners with them, but he responded back with Tarek on the email and just said like, hey, see you Monday. Would love to see you, So Ended up working for, the couple from Flipper Flop and Pete for probably 3.5, 4 years. And totally went like, I was just looking for like somebody to maybe explain what real estate investing was. I didn't realize I was essentially going to work and have an opportunity to learn from basically like almost like the New York Yankees of, I call it flipping. I would say their partner Pete the best probably doesn't get the accolades and respect that that maybe Tarek gets. But it was an unbelievable 3.5, 4 years learning from. I have no problem admitting, like literally the New York Yankees of house flipping.
So, if anyone is watching HGTV reruns at night, will we see Scott show up on any episodes of Flip or Flop?
I did zero TV time. I was behind a computer screen or on a phone trying to find a house, but no TV time. I wish.
Awesome. So no Screen Actors Guilds coming in on top of rent checks every month.
Absolutely zero. This is my first TV time.
Well, good. That's just the power of putting yourself out there, right? And that worked out great for you and got you started on this. You get to learn from, as you phrase it, the New York Yankees of flipping and properties here. So what if someone's ever like, hey, I'm seeing all this stuff on social media and real estate investing makes a lot of sense. And I just feel like stuck, what's the first step someone can actually take to start really learning about this?
I get that question a lot. I always try to, please don't maybe do the $10,000 mastermind or the 25, there's a few things you could do beforehand. I'm always pretty honest with people. I would say, even my case, I never think your first deal is going to be a home run. I mean, that would just be ridiculous to assume that. I would say the knowledge that you would get from doing your first deal, that's kind of the invaluable stuff to deal with. I would also say it's a contact sport, meaning you have to talk to people. You have to talk to agents. You have to make offers. Can't get a house unless you make an offer. It seems like a crazy thing. You could be in the Excel spreadsheets. You could have the greatest freaking, ROI calculator, whatever you want. But unless you make an offer, can't get a property. I would also say, even I used to do this, or I still do this, walking like fixer-uppers. Everyone has Zillow, Redfin on their phone. Like, if there's a fixer-upper by your house and you're like interested in real estate investment, go walk it. I'm the first one to admit, I think I got really, really good at like looking at stuff online. Like, wow, like this one's interesting. Can I make this one work? But till you can walk a house that like is in disarray or needs work, it's pretty crazy seeing it the first few times.
Sure.
I would say maybe 15, 16 years in now doing it, like I still like look at some stuff and I'm like, whoa. So I would say that also is like, it's not really something you would factor into your numbers, but like walking homes, you kind of have to get comfortable doing that as well.
So to your point with talking about that, like you go walk a property. What are some things that you like immediately pick up on as, whoa, this is a total red flag, we should stay away from this, or hey, this is workable and doable and could work out?
I would say major stuff for me these days that obviously like never gets easier is probably foundation stuff. I would say that's probably number one still at the end of the day. At the end of the day, house needs a roof, new HVAC, kitchen and bathrooms, stuff like that. That's stuff, you could always work on that. But when you start doing foundation stuff, you have to get specialists out there, engineers. That's stuff that like really, really starts to add up. And also, you need specialty trades to get that done.
Got it. That makes a lot of sense. I think that's important for people who want to get into it. Just because the price tag looks good doesn't mean you're not going to uncover some very expensive items beyond that.
Correct.
When you're walking a house. So great advice there, Scott. All right. So buy the first house, buy the second house. How do we start building beyond that?
I would say I really called for like a few years just working for Pete and Tarek. I really just got immersed in like, I know this is a stupid question. Like they were taking me this house that, we were rehabbing for the company. Great. Awesome. This is unbelievable what you guys are doing here. But like, why this house? Why'd you buy this house? There are so many houses that need work, but like, why this one? How'd you know it'd work here? How'd you know this thing was worth more? they don't work on the houses. I know it's a TV show, but like he doesn't actually do the work himself. They just let a kid ask probably 1,000 questions, and they just were kind enough to kind of show me the way, show me how to find the houses, what to look for. So I got the chance to basically learn how to do it without my money. It was, obviously they were buying the properties for their company, but they showed me, hey, go find 1, 2, 3, 4. If you find 1, 2, 3, 4, we will buy it. So I kind of took that time to, hey, they were looking for pre-foreclosures, anything, they called it, the 3 Ds as well: divorce, death, and drama. Anything in a distressed situation, they kind of specialized in and were buying. That was kind of their specialty, and I just took notes from that. And that's kind of when I started doing my own thing as well.
Awesome. So I think one of the things people see on the internet or on TikTok, Instagram, whatever, right, is the BRRRR method, right? So can you start by first defining what that is, and then kind of get into what you've been able to do utilizing that?
Yes, obviously a very popular acronym. I call it in the real estate world, but it is buying it, your investment property, rehabbing, then you're going to rent it out, then you're going to refinance it, and then if you're still with me, and if you're good enough, you get to repeat that process over and over and over. In my line of work and what I do for full time, the most underrated and the most important part of this is buying the property, the price. If you don't buy this correctly, or buy the property correctly at the right price, obviously, can you still BRRRR? Of course, but eventually you'd run out of money. I'm not saying that's a bad thing as far as if you had a certain amount of money, but how you keep on doing it is making sure you stay, pretty diligent with your buying and your rehab budget.
Makes a lot of sense. So how do you define buying at the right price? I'm sure that can vary market to market to market.
Yeah. Let's say with some simple math here. I apologize if I lose anybody. Let's say I think a house is going to be worth 200 grand after I'm done with it. My goal is to be all into that house for 140,000. Scott, where'd you get 140,000? Seems like such a random number. I know if I go to my lenders that specialize in DSCR, they'll give me 70% of that value back of what the house is worth.
Right.
So 70% of 200, 140. So whether I can get there, I could buy the house for 100 and put 40,000 into it, or I have to buy it for 120 and man, can I do this for 20? Whichever way you want to get to 140, that's kind of what my goal and what my specialty is.
Got it. And you are funding that renovation work from the BRRRR method on previous homes.
Correct. I'm funding the purchase price of renovation. I would say 90% of the stuff I'm buying is nobody's getting any, maybe hard money loans, hard money debt, but no conventional financing on any of the stuff that I'm buying. Meaning there is literally maybe no roof, maybe there's holes in the flooring. Sometimes the house is just boarded up. Sometimes, unfortunately, I hate to say this, there's just people that have, broken into the home and I have to get squatters out. But I would say typically, you can't get financing on it.
Got it. So you're going in with cash in your world and buying it, doing your work, and then you go to the lender once it's inhabitable and livable at that point.
Correct. And I just want to backtrack on one thing. I know I did that 200,000, 140,000. Just because you're all into a house for 150 or 160 out of, that doesn't make it a failure, by the way, by any means.
Right.
I'm just saying, people get so caught up in the perfect BRRRR situation. That my goal is always to, get all my money out.
Got it. How do you balance how important monthly cash flow from rentals is versus long-term appreciation as you're doing those renovations to those homes and eyeing them?
Great question. I would say my focus is always I want to put, I'm trying to put the best product. I know I'm going to rent this property out, I have a standard of what my rentals to be at. Meaning there's granite in the kitchen, there's brand new cabinets, stainless steel appliances, LVT flooring throughout. there's a standard that I kind of keep to my, I don't do lipstick on a pig. So if you're trying to get the top market value of the home, that's where I kind of keep that standard too. You can't kind of do a half-ass renovation and get the full value.
Got it. Makes complete sense. And I also assume that helps create a larger interest in a tenant pool as well when you're doing the work like that too.
If everyone, to go that $200,000 house, at the end of the day, if that thing rents out for, I'm making this up, but $1,800, and all these people are looking at $1,800 a month rents, houses, I want, wow, like this place is really nice. I want mine to be the best $1,800 a month house there is.
It almost sounds like from the properties you buy and then the work that you do to it, it almost sounds like it's borderline new construction at the point of completion.
I would not go that far or give myself credit, but I do think if you've been to one of my houses, you've been to most of my houses.
So you keep a pretty consistent. These are the appliances.
Correct. Here are the materials. Here are the appliances. Here's the flooring. We are trying to create a product that is very similar moving forward in every single house, and that also helps me with the different vendors that I work with.
Got it. Well, let's get into that just a little bit, right? So you've mentioned you got to be out there meeting people. You got to be talking to people. How do you start to find a consistent crew, 2, 3 maybe, that you trust and that know are going to be able to execute on a timeline as well, right? That you need to get the house done.
So meeting a good vendor or contractor, great question. I think I probably always started with the internet, like anybody else. I'm on my phone trying to find, Drew Ferguson Plumbing, Drew Ferguson Electrical, anything you want. But I would say the absolute best way I found people to work with is I'm literally out driving to my houses and I see all these vans out there working. Like I will get out of my car and go introduce myself. I'm walking into like these vacant houses they're working on and introducing myself to these contractors. One, I love that they're just out about actually getting the work done. But it's a chance I actually get to meet somebody face to face and not just, I'm over the phone, stuff like that.
Sure. And so do you have a consistent 1 or 2 crews that are constantly working on your properties or constantly looking at people?
Great question. Obviously I have some pretty consistent crews that I work with and enjoy working. But I would say definitely the main thing that you would see across the board is I love working with family businesses. Nothing against other contractors, but just I've noticed for me at least, whether it be a franchise or maybe a bigger, nationwide company, I haven't had as much success as far as like a relationship. Some of these family businesses that I work with, I mean, if I need them on a Saturday or, Christmas Eve, like if something really, really serious happens, I'd like to think I've earned my stripes as a customer that, there's somebody out there that can help me. Whereas who knows who's going to have the property during some really tough times.
Cool. That's awesome to hear. And it's great. We all need great people behind us to make ourselves work, right? So I think that's really neat that you're sharing that. So we're talking about BRRRR a little bit. It's great. Sounds awesome. What are the mistakes people make?
One, I would say, obviously, if you think you're going to do a BRRRR and you don't buy correct, like I said, there's, define what a failure is. If you didn't do like the perfect BRRRR to me, you can still have a great deal in your hands. But from what I've seen, I would say buying too high. And then it's very funny. My next answer to this, it's either over rehabbing the property or on the other side of that, under rehabbing the property, but still expecting like top value like that. If it was that easy, that'd be amazing. I wish it was, but I would say that's a very, very popular one. And that's like 2 totally different ends of the spectrum there. Under rehabbing it or over rehabbing it. I would say that actually is buying at 1A, that might be 1B.
I would assume though, if you're going to make one of those screw ups, over rehabbing it would be the least worst screw up you could make.
Yeah, correct. I mean, listen, if you under rehab and like you're going to cut corners and you're still asking for a top price, I mean, people are going to say, like I said, that $1,800 month rent. If all these people are checking out and you're like, this isn't the best one, like they're just going to get in the car and go to the next property.
Gotcha. So you come from the background of flip and flop. it sounds like most of your properties you're holding on to for long term. Are you still pursuing any flipping or anything like that at this point?
So I would say this kind of goes to price point for me. Um, I know people are probably going to enjoy this and kind of like laugh at this, but I would say, so when I say price point, um, 50,000 to 250,000 is like kind of my sweet spot as far as like, man, can I keep this as a rental? That's me personally, just kind of what I look for. And then I would say 250 to 600 is kind of when I have to start thinking about like, hey, this could be a flip opportunity. The reason why is things get a little bit more expensive. I've just seen, at least in the greater Charlotte area, yes, do rents keep climbing, but like at some point, if you have a 600, 700, like your house doesn't rent for 7 grand, 6 grand.
Sure.
So that's just what I personally have seen. And that works for me. So I would say, that price point, that's probably what works for me as far as, hey, am I looking at this as a rental or a flip?
Got it. Give us some nightmare stories of looking at a flip. It all sounds great, but as we all know, in real estate and life, nothing ever works out perfectly as we expect. So give us some of the dark side of it.
Man, there's some stuff that I've purchased and unfortunately squatters have gotten in, like just stuff that you can't plan for. It is amazing. I've learned in this business that people know when a house is vacant. Maybe I just drive by it, but like people just know when a house is vacant. It's unbelievable. So squatters obviously is really, really hard. So in that situation, I've done cash for keys before, meaning like I'm giving them literally cash, cashier's check, to hand me the keys right there on the spot. Or unfortunately, you have to go through the eviction process, which seems crazy enough.
How does that work in North Carolina? If someone runs into that, what
Yeah,
happens?
I would say depending on what counties, obviously, Mecklenburg's different than Gaston. Gaston's different than maybe Catawba, but I would say anywhere from 2 to 4 months. So it's not the greatest thing, but it's also maybe not a year like in some places in the country.
Sure. So your plan is I will give you a couple $1,000s for you to get the heck out of my house.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I know that seems crazy. I know that seems crazy, but time and speed is always the most important thing. I don't care if you're trying to rent out a house or flip a house. Time is literally always the most important thing. So if I can just bite the bullet and end this in one day, I will try. But otherwise, it's like I said, you have to go through the legal process.
So let's talk about the fun side of this, right? You own quite a few properties. I'm sure you have tenants that you love in there. I'm sure you have some tenants that you struggle with. As a real estate investor, I think a lot of times people are sometimes in a rush. I'm going to up the rent every single year. How do you balance that versus, man, I got a great tenant that pays on time and it helps me with repairs maybe themselves. How do you balance do I raise the rent on this person versus, man, this tenant's great and I'm satisfied with what I'm getting?
Amazing question. So I would first like to start with that. Like I would say my specialty and what I do, my rents are anywhere from 1,100 to 2,200. I would definitely say that's my bread and butter right there. I know it's a pretty wide range, but 1,100 to 2,200. How I have kind of helped myself in that scenario, because listen, it's tug of war. You could have a great person in there. But listen, like in Mecklenburg County, like, stuff gets reassessed, I believe every 4 years, property taxes go up. I'm sure everyone knows what's been going on with insurance as far as insurance costs rising. I like to make sure my tenants know, like, hey, they have a spot, they're comfortable. I want them to make, that their home. So I actually only do 18-month leases. I know that seems a little unorthodox, instead of the 12 months. But 18 months has been a really, really happy medium for me, meaning it's not too quick. Like 12 months, it goes like that. They get moved in, call it, and finally settled in month 3 or 4. And they're like, man, like, are we actually going to stay here? So 18 months has been really big for me. They like knowing that price is kind of locked in a little bit longer. And then if I see things kind of, like the insurance thing, the property tax thing, if things start, happening, it's not the craziest conversation to have a year and a half later with somebody. So that has helped me in a lot of ways. And once again, let's say I do go up, if the rent is $1,500 to maybe 1,525, 1,530. They know, once again, that price is locked in for 18 months.
Right.
So that has helped me personally. I know everyone doesn't, one box doesn't fit all, but that has helped me tremendously, the 18-month lease.
Well, and what you just said there is really important, I think, for anyone who's thinking about either investing in real estate or has investment in real estate. You didn't say going from 1,500 to 1,800.
Yeah.
You started going 15 to 1525, 1530. You're making it so that it's fair for you and fair for them. And, the cost of moving is going to vastly outweigh, let me do the quick math here, $500. Yeah. I'm pretty sure I got that wrong, but close enough.
I would also say, even when a lease renewal comes up for me, I'm still looking at what the market is. You know what I mean? If, man, market might have gone down a little bit. Like I have to factor these things in during recent, lease renewal. But like, man, did rent slightly go down, but insurance went up? Like, how do you like, hey, let's just try to keep rent the same. They seem to be pretty happy there. They know what's out there on the market. Like I said, I like to think I have a great product as far as the rent, but I factor that in. You can't rent can't go up $25 just because you want it to, as much as, that sounds great. So I also factor in like what's going on in the neighborhood at that time when that lease comes up.
So you've seen a lot, right? Especially over the last 5 or 6 years here, as we went from COVID, low interest rates, but kind of skyrocketing cost, to now insurance cost. Or how are you able to adjust to that, right? Like, how were your contractors, since you had a great relationship, were they pretty helpful with sharing in some of that, or did you just have to totally rebuild your model?
Yeah. So with insurance, I mean, higher deductible. I know that you can only do so much, and it's not like you can have a $50,000 dollar deductible. So higher deductibles. Just because my a fence blows down or something happens at one of my properties, I'm not going to file a claim. It has to be a pretty, to me, and please, like, this is for me. Insurance to me is an emergency. Like, I'm talking a house is on fire, house is completely flooded. Like, that's what it is to me. If there's a broken window, I'm not filing a claim, things like that. So that has kind of helped me stabilize the rates for me personally. That was one. Then I think one of your next, as far as contractors, I love working with my crews. I mean, but there's only so much they could do. And I if they aren't making money, they're not going to want to work with me. Notice I said they don't work, I want to work together with them. Right. They know, like, hey, man, Scott gives, 3 to 6 jobs a month. And it's not just like, we don't just do one bathroom. I'm doing a house with them.
Right.
So they obviously know they have that stability with me. But listen, I completely understand. There's only so much you can do. Materials are materials. Yeah. So as long as they're transparent with me, and I can now account, like, hey, listen, like an HVAC's 6,500 ish now.
I got to talk to your HVAC guy.
But it just like I used to get it for 5, or Windows I used to get Windows, like the window, and get it installed for $250 a window. Stuff like this. Like, I have to start accounting for these things on when I make my offers. It's going to go boil back to, like, hey, I have to factor this in to my offer because this is what it costs now, unfortunately. And a lot of sellers realize that too, because there's a reason, somebody in the distress, they might have gotten some quotes and call around like, wow, is it 12 grand to get an HVAC now? Those things matter.
Yeah. Did that cause a big disruption in your business when all that started happening, during COVID and coming out of it?
I would say more so. There were just a lot more surprises as far as what things started to cost, or things were really, really hard to get a hold of. Or even like appliances, for how random that is. Like, it was just like, I remember, like, we couldn't even get appliances in a house for how I'm like, we seriously can't, like, Lowe's, Home Depot, like nothing. So yeah. I would say the cost of things just started going up, like, not just like, hey, this went up over 2 years. It was like, oh, wow, in 4 months, this just went up, or we can't even get it, was actually even harder.
Yeah. How are you, for people out there that have more than one house, or maybe they've got 5, 10, 15 houses, How do you go about like managing the data? Because that's a full business, right? At that point, like how do you go about managing the day to day of it actually being a business and when leases are due? Is that just an Excel spreadsheet, or is that like, hey, I've got a whole software that I use to handle this?
No, yeah, great. You're talking like, hey, we're rehabbing 5 houses, or like, hey, you have 15 rentals, and how do you even look over after all this?
Let's hit both of them.
Both. Okay. So like, let's say like 5 projects. For me at this point now, I use a CRM called Pipedrive. So call it, it's just like it's reminders for me. And I'm in there almost every single day making notes like, hey, talk to Drew today about flooring. He said he'll get back to me in 2 days, about like what can we actually do about this? As soon as I finished that conversation with Drew, he said he'll call me in 2 days. There's a note in there. Did Drew call me in 2 days? Like, yeah, not an am. So I'm really and that's what works for me. In that CRM pipe drive, I also maybe have all my deadlines as far as when things should be getting done on each project. As much as I wish I could remember all of them in my head, I can't. So I know if it's in there, like, there's some sort of system to that. And I also, for me, I use Dropbox as far as like you'll probably see a little OCD if you went into my Dropbox. Every property has a folder and then another subfolder as far as, where things to go, meaning like, if you're like, hey, Scott, can you send me the insurance to 123 Main Street? Yeah, no problem. Like I know where it is in that folder. So that's how I kind of manage the rehab side of things. And to add to that as well, I would also say like Tuesdays and Fridays, I check in with my guys. Site visits are completely random. If they know you're going to be there on a certain time, you'd be amazed. They're always there.
They're working.
It's incredible. I'm ashamed to admit that I used to do that. Like, oh, guys, I'll see you Thursday at 11, and they were always there. So I do some site visits now randomly, and I like that. Like, it is a great thing to pull up to a house and you see 2 trucks, 4 guys working at a house. It's also a little frustrating when you pull up and maybe nobody's there. Hey, what's going on? Everything okay? Or even one guy there is tough. One guy can only do so much. But Tuesdays and Fridays to me, I'm big on pictures. Everyone can tell me they're having a great week, but what we get done, pictures.
Yeah.
Going to the rental side, I would say I use a platform called Doorloop. Nothing crazy, but they kind of help me with rent collection, with leases, with background and credit checks. I believe they charge per property, and obviously maybe the more you have, you might be getting a better deal. But it's kind of just a hub where tenants can put in their maintenance requests, renew their leases, rent could be paid. They could review their lease. So maybe 6 to 7, different things they could do in a centralized place. And all maybe, if you have, like you said, if you have 15 tenants, all 15 are going in that one hub. So I could see if anything comes up, I'm not just getting a random text or phone call, and anything like that. Or if I need their information, I have their emails and phone numbers in that as well.
So from your initial experience that you had from working with the guys at the show and to your point now, did you always have the organization piece down, or did you have to learn the hard way of, oh man, I need a centralized place I can keep all this stuff?
I was literally papers on my desk. I thought it was organized. Shout out Pete the Best in this video. He was Tarek's partner fit. He just like the importance of organization, and having everything ready to go, and being diligent about it, because unfortunately, if you have no systems in place, that's how you grow. So, like I said, the OCD has definitely helped. I'm very diligent with putting everything where it needs to be, just because you'd be amazed at how often you need, like, where's that settlement statement from 123 Main Street from 6 years ago? Like, there's no way I have that. Yeah, there's no way I have that piece of paper. Or, do we have the insurance for 246? So stuff like that has really, really helped. I learned it. Very, very thankful to see how they did their systems and processes. So I definitely give them a lot of credit, from how I learned that.
Well, so I want your opinion on this. You obviously have turned this into your business and your livelihood. There's so many people in the market now that have become accidental landlords, right? That's a common buzzword there.
Yeah.
they either bought or refinanced during COVID, and they're sitting on sub 3% interest rates, and they're like, man, the cash flow on this looks great. But they've never done it, right? They've never been the landlord. They've never understood it. What would just be some, baseline advice of things for those people that maybe are only just managing one house and they never thought that being an investment property owner was going to be something that gave them about for them?
I know it's going to sound mean, but not renting to friends and family really helps. Because unfortunately, when it's all good, it's good. And, that's kind of what should be happening. Like the rent's being paid. Maybe your cousin didn't put a hole in a wall or anything like that. But unfortunately, if something doesn't go the right way or no rent's being paid, like now you have to be the bad guy or bad woman to a family member or close friend. That's the worst feeling. So I'm not saying like renting to strangers is the greatest thing, but it's kind of, it always hits a little bit harder when it's, maybe friends or family.
Yeah, it can make Thanksgiving and Christmas a little awkward for sure.
A little more awkward, yes.
So you mentioned some stuff, some products that you use to keep track of all this stuff. If someone's just going to be kind of like a one-off investment property owner, landlord, would you still recommend the stuff you use, or are there other platforms that you think work well for?
I didn't get on those platforms until maybe like easily over 10 or 15. I would say I was a big Zelle guy. It's just easier. I never, as far as like, if it definitely wasn't like, I never really did cash. Venmo's great. What Venmo's great. And especially now, like I saw Zillow, you could list your rental, like, just like one-offs.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That is awesome. No Craigslist, no crazy stuff like that. And then if you are going to like, God forbid somebody moves out, always make sure you get professional pictures of your house. I kind of joke around, like, it's kind of like online dating. You want the best presentation. Yeah. You want to be ready for, the first time somebody looks at this thing. So, yeah, there's definitely resources you could use to rent this thing out before you hop on one of these platforms.
Sure. And I am one of those people that turned into an accidental landlord, and I'll give, as much as I don't love to shout these people out, I'll give Zillow Rental Manager a big shout out. I believe they still let you do one property for free on
Is it
there.
pretty good?
Yeah, and you can, it'll do the background check, the credit check. They can do income verification. You can write your lease in there. You can sign it through there, collect rent through there. If you have any tax forms that come, they send you the tax forms.
Oh,
so
wow.
Great all in one place. If that's anybody else that's thinking about just being a one-off landlord there. So we'll give them a special shout out. But Scott, we've covered a lot, man. Like, is anything that's still on your mind that you think would be important to know if they want to get into flipping or being a real estate investor as a career?
It's been beneficial for me, and kind of like another credit to Pete, who I used to work for, with Tarek and Christina. He had kind of said something to me, and Pete, I know they're in California, but they did stuff in different states, so kind of I got to see this theory kind of play out. Maybe this is kind of the greater Charlotte area. I specialize in $1,100 to $2,200 rents. Obviously, there are rents that are cheaper than that, more affordable than that. No problem with that. I have just noticed personally, like, just because you start getting into cheaper houses, meaning like, hey, you bought something for $50,000 and the rent's $600. Like, well, you go on a spreadsheet, the numbers, this return looks unbelievable. But when you start dealing with that, he said it best, like, roofs aren't cheaper just because you have a cheaper house. I know it's like, but like, the HVAC isn't cheaper when it breaks. Like, so when there's just not a lot of rent coming in, it gets really, really hard to cover maintenance stuff. I mean, if your rent's $500-$600, it would take you years to cover that.
Sure.
I'm not saying it's crazy faster when the rents are $1,200, but that was one thing that I kind of took to heart as far as like, hey, it's the sweet spot. Obviously, you're still going to get punched in the face as far as people don't pay the rent, people move out in the middle of the night, people break stuff. Materials still break, appliances go out. Maybe like the dishwasher just goes out at least everywhere. So things are still going to happen. You obviously have to budget for that. But I always kind of just remember that line of like, just because it's a cheap house doesn't make it a great house. And then roofs aren't cheaper on cheaper houses. I love that line.
I don't mean to speak for you here, but it basically is a way of saying, if you're going to do this, having reserves is incredibly important.
I would say that is an understatement because when an HVAC goes out, and of course it only goes out when it's 100 degrees here in North Carolina, and it's going to be 2 a.m. It will never be 1 p.m., 2 a.m. But you have to get it done. I mean, you have to take care of it right away. So things will happen. That's a great example. But I just always remember that line. You know, nothing gets cheaper just because it's a cheaper house. You don't get a deal.
Well, cool. Let's end with a couple fun questions. I'm excited for your answer on this. As a noted foodie aficionado, you and your lovely wife, Lacey, get a night to yourselves. No kids. We're going on date night. Where are you guys going?
Brick tops, easy.
Brick tops, can't go wrong. What's your go-to there?
I'm probably gonna get made fun of this. I will start off with some sushi there, and then probably have the ribs. For how crazy that sounds, if you've never been to Brick Tops, it's doable to do it in the same night.
That is the perfect order at Brick Tops. You gotta get the ribs if you go to Brick Tops. That's a no-brainer for sure.
Correct.
All right, you're a golfer, much like I am. We both enjoy it. How would you relate golf to life and business, and how you tie the two together, if you do it all?
I would say golf and real estate, definitely there's some correlations. Like as far as like when you're trying to get better at golf, I would say, listen, you can get better overnight. God bless you. I haven't seen it personally as far as like maybe when I'm working on my game, and it's kind of the same thing with like renovating a house. Like I wish I could flip a house in one night. So as far as like putting the time into things, everyone, I typically get asked questions about my job, but like when I tell people that if I make 100 offers, Drew, I get 3 of those deals.
Yeah.
That is just like crazy. And the only reason I know these, like my CRM, I have the data, but like, just like when I say that out loud, it's like, wow, that is, and listen, that's what I'm looking for. Obviously, maybe numbers could be higher for for different people, but I mean, it is a contact sport. Like you cannot get these houses or get people to say yes to an offer unless you are making offers. And then if it's okay with you, maybe one more thing that I love, I just love this tip from Tarek and Pete, both of them. I always make the offer to people. What does that mean? You're on the phone with somebody, you're working with an agent, you're trying to figure out like how much, they want for their home. And, they're at, I'm making this up, 150,000. And I'm looking, I'm like, oh my God, I have to be at 90 or 80, just something like, ooh, this is going to be a tough phone call. I always make the phone call. That phone call will go exactly how you think it's going to go, 98 out of 100 times. But I always make the offer. That's another one that has always stood with me for maybe the last, call it now, dozen years, but I always make the offer. So
to tie it back, maybe it's like I'm playing you in a match. You make a 30-footer for birdie on me, and I drop an expletive on you for doing that.
That's how, like I said, that phone call is going to go exactly how you think it's going to go 98% of the time. And listen, I sometimes catch myself. It's like, why am I going to make this phone call? It's like, why am I going to make this? But, sometimes people think they just throw out a number. They actually don't even know. Yeah. Or it's like, oh, wow, he can get, I can close in a week, or just, it's just, you never know what somebody's dealing with. Mm-hmm. Good, bad, ugly. I'm just saying, I always make the offer, and that has been tremendous for me in my career.
Cool. If someone wants to sell Scott a house, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Social media, Scott buys houses, or, scottbuyshouses.llc.com. But, if you type that in, I'm pretty easy to find.
Well, cool, man. It's been awesome hearing you share your story, hearing you share tips for people who want to get into this and are looking at it. And I think we covered the full spectrum from everything. So I appreciate your time today.
Drew, thank you so much. Absolute pleasure. And this is episode...
Ooh, I think this is going to be... I might get this wrong. I think you're going to be episode 16 or 17.
Absolute honor. Either way, I prefer 17. Is that a prime number?
It is. So maybe I'll record 1 or 2 more and make sure you come out with 17. How about that?
Thank you so much, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Enjoyed it.